Yoimiya's rerun got me to dig out my old account that managed to pull her like 1 year ago, and you may think this is crazy, but I think she is criminally underrated and a bit misused. Now, the main reason for that is people has been saying that she is a single target DPS, level up her talent, level up her normal attack, slap her with a normal attack buff kind of artifact, and yeah, boom, you're done. But that is going to affect the whole design philosophy of what I think the developer intend her to be played. Now, for example, look into her passive, which is the backbone of every characters. First passive, as long as you use her E during that duration, which is like 10-second duration, every normal attack you hit is going to grant her a stacks. Now, as long as you don't AFK for 3 seconds in the middle of a battlefield, you will gain 10 stacks pretty easily. And this is going to be important for the next passive, which is Summer Night's Dawn, which states that if you use a burst, the whole team member is going to get a 10% attack increase. Now, that alone might not be impressive, but for every stack you gain from the first passive, you will gain an extra 1% attack boost. And that means that she will give a total of 20% attack boost for the whole team for 15 seconds. That may not be impressive, but this attack buff can help character in your team that cannot be snapshotted. For example, like Xingqiu, he cannot be snapshotted, so this attack buff is going to help boost his damage for the whole duration of his off-field capability. So that is pretty important. And of course, I don't have to mention that any attack buff is going to help snapshot characters. So that means she is designed in the way that you will use a E, get the 10 stacks, then you use a burst, which will buff all your off-field DPS character, such as Xingqiu, of course. But that is a limitation. You have to use her burst, which a lot of people, if you use Shimenawa Set, you will not be able to do it reliably without a decent investment with energy recharge. And that is what I'm missing. Of course, we can't exactly leave without discussing about her burst. Now, her burst is pretty straightforward. A single skill damage when you trigger it. Then after that, there will be an Aura's Blaze, basically a goldfish that will hunt down the enemy until they die. And it can only be triggered once every 2 seconds. But she is governed by the same internal cooldown rule. What does it mean is she will ideally only able to trigger a pyro-based reaction every first, the third hit, and the 5th hit, which is the end of a burst because it's only 10 seconds long. Unless you have a constellation, which give an additional 4 seconds to do so. Other than that, that is the premise of her burst. Now, disclaimer, we are about to go into some discussion about her internal cooldown, which can be really long. And if you think you know already, then you can go ahead and skip to the next chapter. While we are at the topic of internal cooldown, so might as well we discuss about what does her internal cooldown affects her for her E skill when you spam her normal attack. Now, you might have already listened that, it actually doesn't matter much. Her first hit, the third hit, and the 5th hit that you pressed is going to trigger an pyro-based reaction, which is where it matters the most, since it has the highest multiplier. But what if you dodge in between the 5th hit, the 4th hit, or the 3rd hit you decide to dodge? So what will happen then? Long story short, your internal cooldown is now fucked. But because of that, I found something interesting. At the end of this combo, which I'm doing, and first 3rd hit that I dodge away, which makes her 2nd normal attack and the 4th normal attack at the end do a pyro reaction. But after I finish her N5, normally it will be her 2nd normal attack that would do a pyro-based reaction. Instead of that, her 1st normal attack hit becomes a pyro-based reaction. And 2.5 seconds is not even out yet. So it actually resetted her internal cooldown just by finishing her attack sequence. So this is something that you can look into. And that will be all for this internal cooldown nonsense. It's a bit too naggy. As we have discussed, using a burst is quite important to buff the overall damage output of your team. So, in retrospect, if you are to use a 4-piece Shimenawa set, it's going to be really difficult for her to get back her burst by the end of the rotation. Which means you do have to increase the amount of investment that you can find for an energy recharge piece so that she can reliably burst every single rotation. Now, if you don't want to do that, we can go for different artifact options. or even a team comms option, which I will discuss later. For artifact options, we can go with a 2-piece combo, being the 2-piece Gladiator, 2-piece Shimenawa, or 2-piece Echoes. Any of these two mixed together will be perfectly fine because you can buff a normal attack damage as well as a burst damage. Then if you want to go one step further, you can go with a 2-piece attack of any of these 3 options, followed by a 2-piece Crimson Set, which is one of the main reasons why I haven't really started farming, because there has been some information that we might be getting a quality of life upgrade to get Crimson Witch easier using the garbage we have. So that's what I'm holding back off for. And on top of that, speaking of Echoes, Echoes actually can perform similarly to an Shimenawa Set if the conditions are right. However, for me, my condition of a really high latency is going to push back the ability to make it more consistent. This is what I heard, that Echoes is dependent on latency, so for high latency user, you might not want to consider that options. But if you have low latency, you can go ahead and try it out as well. And with Echoes, you don't have to worry about the energy cost. You can go with like 130 energy recharge each, and that should be suffice. So all in all, if you're still keen in using Shimenawa Set, then the team comms will be as what you see above, with Yoimiya, Fischl, Xingqiu, and of course Yunjin. And you can see my Yunjin is not even built. It's embarrassing, so I can't exactly show you the full rotation consistently, but I can show you a sample rotation later so that you get a glimpse of an idea how this team can do. Now for Fischl though, you do need to take note, if you think that you don't have enough energy while using a Shimenawa Set Yoimiya, you can always increase the amount of energy you can funnel in through the means of equipping them with Favonius Wobble. Actually, Favonius series like Xingqiu and Yunjin can do the same, but you do have to take note that the damage output will be affected. And one more thing about Fischl is to note that her C0 and C6 does a huge difference in energy generation, so do keep in mind for that. And for Xingqiu, ideally, in order for you to use Favonius Sword reliably, you do have to have a crazy amount of investment in his energy recharge department to keep this reliable in the first place. So this is the factor you do need to consider. And one more thing, Yunjin is a bit difficult to get pure defense set and a really good crit rate artifact so that she can reliably generate the Favonius lens effect. So other than that, that is pretty much it. So as you can see, this is the rough idea of a team comms with her, one energy generator, one off-field DPS, and of course another normal attack buffer. This can be replaced with Bennett for energy generation / attack boost, so it's up to you. So this means that you can replace any one of those roles as long as they fit in the situation, but for Xingqiu it's a little irreplaceable because his skills with attack and the other character that does the same job is Yelan, and Yelan's skills with HP, so you can't really benefit from Yoimiya's Burst. But if you want to do that, you don't have to focus on energy anymore because of that reason. Now, for energy role, this is pure speculation and based on raw data for now. Spoiler alert, this is about Dori. Dori has the potential to become a battery for Yoimiya because of how much energy she can generate just by being her at C0. So after she's released, I'm going to test it out and show you if I'm lucky enough to get her in the first place. Otherwise, this is pretty much the team that is supposed to do, and this is how the rotation works. First, you want to start with a Q, although you don't proc the full passive ability, but this is quite crucial, and this is only going to affect her for the first rotation. The subsequent rotation is going to maximize her second passive ability. Then we will switch over to Xingqiu, which will use his E then Q so that his burst can last longer, sufficient enough so that Yoimiya can benefit from it as well. Then we will follow up with either Fischl or Yunjin. Now if your Fischl is C6, your extended duration is going to make it possible for you to use Fischl first, but for C0, I can't, so she will be used after Yunjin's buff. which is going to use a skill, then followed by a Q. Then after that, I will switch on to Official, which I will use a burst or a E depending on your situation. Then we'll go back to Yoimiya, use a E, then dash a normal attack. Then the whole cycle should repeat if you have enough energy. To sum up what I think about Yoimiya, she's an excellent single target damage dealer. Not as crazy as some, but she don't cause you stamina to do damage, so all you have to do is to focus on trying to survive. And the burst, while people has argued that the damage is not too significant, but you do have to take note that this ability is designed with a support in mind, which is kind of fucked up, but because of that, she is not going to do crazy amount of damage. But fortunately, her base attack stats is pretty high, so you will still see some nice number, but don't expect crazy number from something that is designed as a support. And instead of just looking at her burst as a face value damage, you do have to look into the whole spectrum, that how much damage your team member is receiving because of that 20% attack boost. It may not be significant, but they are being benefited by this passive ability that could result in more overall damage. Just saying. Of course, if this burst passive was changed to be like overall damage boost, this is going to be a huge different kind of scenario, but for now, this is a kit. So with that said, this is what I think about Yoimiya. Hopefully it does help you, and that's all.